Good morning, everyone. First of all, a great session by Dr. Saraswat to give an perspective of green hydrogen. And on the continuation of same, what we just learned, we'll talk about how India can become an hydrogen hub with our eminent panelists from the industry, which Navita just introduced, and not taking much of their time. Just lay down the grounds that what we are going to talk about is more around how India can become a net hydrogen hub. Second, look for the roadmap towards building green hydrogen as a mechanism to help India transition and meet the five mantras, five Panch Amrits of what in COP26 our Honorable Prime Minister had laid down. One of them is reduce the carbon emission by 1 billion tons. And for doing that, a lot of hard to abate sector have to follow green hydrogen as a mechanism. We'll look into certain challenges and the policies that the government needs to bring in. And we'll also look for what kind of manufacturing setup that we need to build within the overall ecosystem in India to make it cost competitive, because that's just not an India problem, but looking from a global competition, that how India can become not only for the domestic need, but as far as export. With that in the thought process, I will start with Mohit to understand, Mohit, how do you think with NTPC's tall targets of moving from a fossil fuel base to a renewable, and in that renewable setup of almost 60 gigawatts that you have envisaged, green hydrogen will play a role, and what are your targets and what's your viewpoint from an India standpoint of view?
Good morning, and thanks ETEnergyworld for having me here. So we had a very enlightening presentation from Dr. Saraswat. Of course, I must say I have been privy to this presentation before also. It's always good to learn so much from him, because he is the stalwart at NITI who actually has been guiding NTPC not only on this side, but also on a lot of other initiatives. So thanks to Dr. Saraswat. Of course, he's not here. Yes, NTPC has set for itself a target of 60 gigawatt by 2032. A broad idea was that in the next 10 years, we should try to create a renewable capacity, which is almost as large as the coal-based capacity which we have done over the last 40 years. Of course, we have the advantage of the fact that renewable has much lesser gestation period. So out of this 60, while the numbers on the hydrogen side are still, I would say, a bit gray, because a lot of it depends on how we are able to actually have a demand created, a lot of which domestically will happen once the National Hydrogen Mission, the second part, is formally announced by the government. We believe it's in the final stages, and we understand it might come out anytime soon. So what we understand from that National Hydrogen Mission is the fact that a couple of things. It will lead to enablement of domestic demand creation through putting in place hydrogen consumption obligations. What this will do is that they will probably identify a certain percentage of hydrogen to be used by industries like fertilizer, refinery, basis what they're using now. So it probably start at 5% of the consumption and gradually increase to, say, 30% in the next 7 to 8 years. That is expected to create demand domestically. And I understand initially the 2 or 3 sectors which are being considered are fertilizer, refining, gas, and city gas. So these are 3, and in due course, they will also be looking at hard to abate sectors like steel and aviation and marine, so on and so forth. What we have actually done on the hydrogen side is simple. We have already started 3 pilots on the hydrogen business. Of course, these are all pilots, let me say, and not commercial numbers. So we have started one pilot in Leh, where we are putting in place a hydrogen filling station along with a solar plant, so that will be green hydrogen. And we will be running hydrogen-based fuel cell buses in Leh. The idea is that this is part of the carbon neutral Ladakh. And through this pilot, we also want to establish that even in harder climate like Ladakh, which actually sees -40, Leh sees -40 during the winter months, We will be able to use green mobility because as compared to hydrogen-based buses, we understand the battery EVs loses their efficiency significantly during the stark winter month. The other pilot, this of course, the Ladakh thing, we expect to get rolling by sometime July, August next year. The other pilot is blending of green hydrogen and natural gas. This we are doing at one of our projects in Kawas. This is expected to be commissioned sometime in the next 2 weeks. So we intend to start blending 3% hydrogen, green hydrogen into the natural gas pipeline, into a city gas pipeline at Kawas. The third pilot which we are doing is a combination of hydrogen and carbon capture. This we are doing at one of our projects in Vindhyachal, where we are producing green hydrogen and we'll mix it with with the captured carbon dioxide to produce methanol. Dr. Saraswat did refer to green methanol. So this is another pilot. So our idea is that this will give us enough numbers in terms of how these things can actually be planned on a larger scale. Because methanol is an important potential carrier for hydrogen. We can transport hydrogen using gas pipelines, but as Dr. Saraswat clearly mentioned, that is probably not the most cost optimal solution. So it's either ammonia right now or methanol right now. And methanol itself has a lot of use cases which can be used to actually substitute the imports of methanol, which India is doing largely currently. So these are 3 pilots. Tentatively, Kapil, what we are looking at is that out of the 60 gigawatt, roughly around 5 gigawatt of our capacity will be used for hydrogen production and ammonia. So as far as NTPC is concerned, it's all green. We're not looking at any other, this is with apologies to the earlier presentation. We're not looking at any other source of hydrogen because we are into power generation. So for us, it's electricity and we are going majorly into renewables. So all our hydrogen initiatives are truly focused on green hydrogen. And I think quickly, I'm also responding partly to the one question which we had at the session, that we are not looking at hydrogen for generation purposes because it's our very clear understanding that hydrogen in its current context is actually more useful for industrial uses rather than for power generation. So I'll probably stop there and hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mohit. You really gave the ball rolling in terms of your pilots, which you mentioned 3 pilots, one in the city gas distribution, one on the transportation, and as you said that a lot of that would be on the green side. So obviously it's walking the talks that have been there in the green hydrogen space. But thank you, Mohit, for your perspective. Now, given that in India, a lot of the hydrogen has already been produced from a gray perspective. We saw the presentation just now, which talks about almost 6 MMTP of hydrogen is produced. A lot has been used, almost 54% in the refineries and rest in the fertilizer. So on those bases, given that the pilot has been already done by NTPC, there is one pilot that is, we heard, L&T has done in Hazira. So Bimal, the question is, given that the pilots are ongoing, L&T being a major EPC player, from EPC to a developer, how do you see the transition for green hydrogen and your ecosystem development towards electrolyzers? So 2 parts of it, as a developer for green hydrogen and your focus on one of the things that talked about as electrolyzer manufacturing in India. I think you already have some MOUs already in place. So over to you, Bimal.
Thanks, Kapil. Thanks, ETEnergyworld, for inviting me to this conference. I think if we look into the long horizon, Dr. Saraswat also said, the hydrogen is going to be one of the critical molecule for the future energy security perspective. I will say, we have already set up 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030, which is a pretty good number. So we see a lot of potential and definitely a good opportunity for all the Indian companies. The way I look into green hydrogen, it is going to be the molecule which will help us to become energy independent. Right now, we are importing all the major equipment or gas or oil from outside India. Now, for the hydrogen production, you have 2 major factors. One is the renewable energy. Second is the electrolyzer. I think Dr. Saraswat touched upon on some of the things that our grid need to be 90% on renewable energy, which is currently at 10%. Yes, definitely this is going to be one of the challenges which we need to overcome. But on the good side, we have lot of potential in renewable energy. We have lot of wasteland. We have pretty good sunlight. We have, again, pretty good resources in terms of wind energy. So we need solar, we need wind. The storage is the another element which we as a country are working upon. It need to be competitive. So that, this can achieve. If you look into Dr. Saraswat's presentation, he indicated roughly 50% CUF for electrolyzer. So I think that can be pretty much achieved with solar and wind itself, So I think we are on the right track. Given this opportunity, we at L&T also believe, we will play a good role. L&T is in the hydrocarbon space for more than 2 decades, doing, a lot of projects on hydrogen side, conventional SMR plants and ammonia plants. So we see this is going to shape up in a good way. Coming to the question of electrolyzer, I think at this moment, India has a very good opportunity. If look into globally, I will not say from India perspective, there's not much of manufacturing base in the electrolyzer side. Electrolyzer is going to be one of the key and critical component to have the green hydrogen in place. Now, everyone across the globe is struggling to get the supply of electrolyzers. So I think India being a low-cost manufacturing hub can encash this thing. We definitely need to put a lot of thrust and emphasis on research and development, which we, as a country has not been able to encash in the solar side. I will put it that way. I think we can take some of the learnings from solar sector where the complete manufacturing has been done outside and we are importing most of the panels. And again, like Dr. Saraswat said, it should not become another import syndrome, right? So we need to definitely focus. I see a lot of announcements, including L&T, we plan to get into the manufacturing. We need to get the ball rolling and make some quick movements. I think the government is also going to play an important role. Government is already planning to come up with the PLI, production linked incentive for electrolyzer, which is definitely going to boost. Again, we are hearing there might be some incentives from some of the states, which will be going to promote the manufacturing side. In the overall, if you look into, we are talking about 116 gigawatt of electrolyzer as per one of the draft report. If we need to hit this 5 million tons of green hydrogen target by 2030. So the potential is good. I think we are on the right track. We just need to continue the momentum. There will be some challenges, but again, we need to look into half glass full rather than half glass empty. Yeah. Thank you.
Great perspective, Bimal. Given that there is already significant 5 TPA that we are going to build, as Bimal mentioned, that from almost 116 gigawatt, but then there should be enough demand, and ACME has been working very closely in different states and made some lot of announcements. So I'm very intrigued to understand from Sandeep, to understand how ACME is looking from the National Hydrogen Mission Part 1, which came on the supply side. Demand side is expected. How you see at the state level your announcement and your movements towards the demand that is going to pick up, and what's your take on the overall green hydrogen offtake?
Good morning, everyone, and I'd like to thank ETEnergy for inviting me to this conclave. Coming to the question, I'm very happy to share that we as a company have built the world's first green hydrogen and green ammonia plant, which has been in operation for the last 1 year in Bikaner now. And that plant has given us a lot of learnings in terms of our future commitments, in terms of expansion in this area. Being a renewable energy player, it makes a lot of sense for us to extend ourselves into green hydrogen and green ammonia space. Coming to our plans, in fact, if you really see, the world has moved a little faster than what we have moved in India so far in terms of green hydrogen, green ammonia. And therefore, our initial plans we did for exporting green ammonia, which is in demand, and we are coming out with a very large facility in Oman. The phase 1, which is under construction now, the offtake agreements have already been done and we are completely sold out. And basis that we, with that confidence and the knowledge which we could gain, we have done 3 MOUs with 3 state governments in India. The first one is Tamil Nadu, which is again a 1.1 million metric ton facility, and second is with Karnataka, and third recently we have announced in Orissa. Essentially, all these units are more so export-oriented units because in India, we have been in touch with the potential buyers of green hydrogen or green ammonia, as mentioned by my fellows. Initially, the mandate targets 2 industries, which is 2 or 3, which is refineries to start with, and then fertilizers, where we are importing grey ammonia, and the third is the gas networks in the cities. What we understand is everybody is looking at 2 areas. One, they are still looking at the mandates, and second is most of them has been into their finalization of strategies in terms of procurement, as well as an understanding of how these will operate, and therefore there are a lot of pilots which we could see, a lot of expression of interest in the last 1 year, and a lot of pilots NTPC has started, and more so, and there are some partnerships also announced. So currently all these clients are looking at their strategies, and they will roll those out based on their understanding on how the mandates are going to play once the policy is announced, which is very near now. So that's where I believe we are as a country sitting.
Oh, lovely, Sandeep. So we heard what a conventional power generator to a renewable base to an EPC player towards a developer, an already established player who has done the green hydrogen, green ammonia with offtake. But the world is taken by storm when we said 111 and almost $79 billion of investment. So what are we looking for Anurag in terms of Reliance's own requirement, given the mega scale of manufacturing to consumption and the India's potential for Reliance to play a major role as a green hydrogen hub, and your viewpoints on the similar from one, your own requirements to the global requirement, and second, how do you see the transition that can happen between before gray to green happens? Is there a role play for blue hydrogen in your viewpoint?
Yeah, thanks, Akhil. So good morning, everyone. Is it audible? Yeah. So first of all, thanks to ETEnergyworld for having me here. We know pretty much what our chairman has been speaking for last 2 AGM. Our plans of going big way in the new energy, what we call, which is based on 4, let's say, pillars. Starts from the solar to generate the renewable electricity, green electricity, and then taking that electricity and converting to a hydrogen molecule, green again there. And also, as there were a few discussions on what will be the cost of electricity if you go from hydrogen to electricity back again. So if you generate excess electricity, it will be stored in the battery, and that obviously electricity can be used in future. And so that's the third pillar where we are considering a battery in a big way. Obviously, that go into mobility and storing the electricity for power backup system as well, or any other applications. And the fourth is where you take the hydrogen and convert back into electricity, either for mobility or stationary power again there as well. So those are 4th pillar. And in the last AGM, the chairman spoke about having a 5th gigafactory on power electronics, because we are talking about a world where electricity is going to be the form, energy carrier, pretty much in every area, right? So power electronics is going to be very important. So we are looking at this 5, let's say, very critical areas. Obviously, ultimately reaching to the, this economics, because, no matter how much we talk about this greenification, ultimately the economics would matter, right? So if you can reach to the cost points where we are today or closer to that, the idea is there will be adoption like what we did in Geo. The digital revolution, came because we could provide the world-class 4G data, at less than $2 per month. You're consuming 70, 80 GB of data. So can something like this be done to, new energy? And if we can do that, there's no question of adoption. So that is where that $1 comes in. Obviously, $1 for kg of hydrogen production. within this decade. I mean, that's the target. Lot of all these factors would go in every element of the value chain, and when we are saying value chain here, not just restricted to the hydrogen, you have to go upstream all the way to how you produce your electricity. And as Bimal was talking about, we have to consider solar, wind, everything out there, right? Whatever is renewable, sustainable, we have to consider that. And while you are thinking of this transition, it's actually a transition, right? So you have to look at the future where you want to ultimately arrive to a perfect green world, renewable, sustainable, affordable, and available to everyone. That's the dream what our chairman looks at. And to go there, you will have to do a lot of stuff, right? And that is where the transition, how well you plan your transition. I know, this, let's say our community from hydrogen has been giving various color to hydrogen, which is actually a colorless gas. But what you have to think, ultimately, we are trying to solve a climate issue, the emission issue, right? And what has happened, which is the right way to think about is like, look at the intensity of the emission when you are looking at the energy for the consumptions. And that is where the, instead of going from green, blue, pink, all sorts of color, you start saying, what is the carbon intensity for every, every kg of hydrogen produced? And I would say, whatever is the benchmark today, I mean, as you saw, Dr. Saraswat was talking about, right, from 2025, kg of CO2 to, to the lesser value when you're going to the renewable, the hydrogen generated from the renewable electricity. Anything less than those values should be a welcome stage, right? So unless you do that, because you're talking about a mammoth exercise, you're talking about energy transition, you are actually trying to change the energy fabric, or how the economic work, right? So from that point of view, I would say there is a role for everything. Bring in anything biogenic to, to let's say photosynthesis or whatever works. Obviously, initially, you will not have the economics working for you. And that is where the pilots, as NTPC was talking about, ACME is doing. All of the colleagues here are doing those pilots. Those are important because we will learn a lot of things from there. At an operational level, at a standard level, there are various aspects which we have to learn. What has happened is basically when you look into the future, all the great minds, who analyze, at least they found that, one common denominator saying that the hydrogen is the only molecule which can make, let's say, those 1.5 degrees C target, to keep the temperature down. Hydrogen is the only thing which can work. And as you saw in the previous slides by Dr. Saraswat, hydrogen is that magical molecule which can be used in various applications. We know that as of now. How would we go towards, the final hydrogen economy? I think that is the, that is something we all have to unravel, right? So in just a summary that, we do not know, even Reliance doesn't know how it will go about, but, the target is set, and we all have to achieve this together because this is not something which can be pulled by one company or one country. This is an effort which, we have to take as a global citizen together. Thank you.
So Anurag raised a very important point. How to achieve that? That is the question that we are all baffling with, and a lot of our clients ask, how do we do that? I know Mohit has been very kind to stay back. Last question to Mohit before he leaves, because he was to leave by 11:30. So last question, how to achieve that overall green hydrogen hub and values? What kind of policy, what kind of incentives that you look for from the government? Because this is just not India issue, but a global issue, but what kind of incentive will make a difference? Because we know a lot of different governments, US have recently released a regulation called IRA Act, which made it green hydrogen to be very competitive globally. So what thoughts are your, from a policy standpoint of view, incentive standpoint of view, regulation standpoint of view, Mohit, before you leave?
I think we also need to understand a few points here, and in the interest of time, probably I actually cannot go into too much detail. So one of the things which was made in the earlier presentation was that green hydrogen is very costly. So I was just asking Sandeep, who was sitting next to me on the sofa here, because we had as speaker, Sudhir told us, "Aap sofa baith jaye." So we were sitting on the sofa, I said, this comparison is of at what gas price? If you consider $40 gas price, green hydrogen is cheaper today. And I know a lot of my gas friends, and I agree with Dr. Saraswat, who says, I am not a gas expert. So if you talk to our gas friends, none of them are actually willing to commit to a $10 gas price even 2 years down the line. They say, we are not very sure, it might happen. So if we are looking at a future of gas, which is at say $35, $40 kind of number, so green hydrogen is cheaper today. So what's the big deal in talking about a blue hydrogen? Because the biggest variable I also see with blue hydrogen is carbon capture. If we have to produce blue hydrogen, we have to sequester all the carbon dioxide, which will come out courtesy of SMR process. And this is a question we have been posing to IEA also, that have you done a study to ensure that all the carbon dioxide which is produced can be actually sequestered safely? So I think they're doing a lot of studies, they're in the process. So green hydrogen per se, I'd say, is a very simple matter of choice. I agree with Anurag when he says probably green or any other color, but the fact is that renewable hydrogen is the one with the lowest CO2, actually zero CO2. And if there is any other process of producing hydrogen with zero carbon dioxide, let's all grab it. I mean, there's no question about it. The point is that hydrogen is expected to be, as I think, I don't know, someone said miracle molecule, or you said so. I'm not sure about the miracle molecule, but yes, hydrogen seems to have a lot of traction today. Only time will tell what are the challenges with hydrogen and how many industries actually embrace it. So from the policy perspective, I feel the document which the government is actually working on, the National Hydrogen Mission Phase 2, if we call it, it actually does, I mean, the initial discussions we have been party to, it actually does take care of most of the issues which the industry has raised, including from the point of view of creating demand, including from the point of view of creating standards, safety measures, including how to encourage the, or incentivize electrolyzer manufacturing, and because we also hear that a PLI for electrolyzer is under discussion with the government. So all these things are enablers which will actually happen. And I was actually, I must share that the MNRE, which has done a lot of good work on this so far, they're actually quite up to date. So it's never like you're telling the government something new. They already know what is happening globally. And let me share with you, nothing is actually happening globally on hydrogen. Because all the people are actually talking a lot. So there's a lot of research which has been done. Sandeep said Oman, so I think they are one of the very few projects which is actually taken off the ground. Otherwise, in Europe also, the information we have, they're quite focused on hydrogen, which is good because the amount of work, likely or announced investment, and the traction green hydrogen has today is immense. So we all feel that hydrogen has a great future. So in terms of policy, I feel if, as and when this document is actually issued, from the Indian perspective, a lot of things will actually start falling into place, which will kickstart or accelerate the growth of hydrogen. The ambition of the government is very clear, and which we are totally clued into, that we need to be the green hydrogen growth center for the world. And we have the right credentials. We have enormous renewable capacity. If we can get the other pieces of the puzzle also in place, we can actually make it happen. So I think apart from the Middle East, India appears to be the only other nation which can actually compete on the green hydrogen side. Competition is always relative. At $30 a gas, like I said, today it is cheaper. If the gas does come down to $10, yeah, we have our work cut out. Reliance has said 111. If 111 happens, everything else is in any case out of picture. Even at $2.5, I feel hydrogen has a great future, because this will outcompete all other sources of energy at any given point of time. So for us, it's a matter of competing with whatever is the competition. I agree with you, IRA has been a great disruptor, and which is why EU has started, ultimately fighting with the US. So because I don't know how long IRA will continue, what kind of support they will keep giving. But yes, I believe government is also looking at some kind of incentives, whether direct or indirect. Those things will fall into place. And thanks. I think I'll have to leave. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mohit, for such an enlightening point of views that you have provided on the green hydrogen. Look forward for interacting with you in future. Thank you, Mohit. So we'll continue with our discussion. There is point of view that is green hydrogen really happening? And we heard Sandeep talking about happening in Oman, and I also overheard that in chloroalkylene, a lot of things are already happening on the hydrogen production as a byproduct. So we were doing an analysis, understanding that even in the chloroalkylene manufacturing, hydrogen which is produced, if produced through renewable, becomes cost competitive in today's time. So is the puzzle going to be solved in different industries, just not the water electrolysis, but also in the chemical industry? Sandeep, and your thoughts on that? And is there any other industry where we can find a similar applications?
So we have industries where power is essentially the source or the raw material. Hard to abate industries like cement, steel, chemicals, and there are a lot of chloroalkali manufacturers who are now looking at replacing traditional power with renewable energy power so that their whole operations can be green. And essentially, hydrogen is a byproduct in their process, and which they generally trade, in the local markets. All these sectors put together, if I see steel, cement, chemical, and then transport, which includes road, aviation, and our shipping lines, they all put together, are responsible for almost 30% of GHG emissions or carbon emissions globally. So these are the sectors which are important. We need to find out the use cases, and trials and pilots are required at this stage. On one hand, look, we talk about green hydrogen as a new subject, but if you really see, renewable power is there in the world for the last 50 to 100 years. Likewise, the electrolyzers are there for almost 50 years. So there is nothing new. The only thing which is new is the integration, which is the integration part essentially because renewable power is infirm, which is not available 24 hours, and it has got its own cycles. And the key challenge is integrating these two technologies, which we have done in our Bikaner plant, and there are a lot of learnings, as I mentioned. Going forward, I believe hybrid would be the key word, wherein not only one technology like either solar or wind, it is going to be a hybrid which will take the CUF to the extent of 75–85% availability of power, which will make it really competitive to produce green hydrogen, at a much higher CUF continuously. So I think these are the sectors which we need to really work on. There are a lot of interest with the exports from India going to European countries, and wherein the demand is going to be only green steel or green products. All the steel manufacturers in India are also seriously looking at how to make green steel in future, because they will not be able to export either directly steel, or even the car manufacturers who are buying steel from them, they will not be able to export from India. So the whole industry is working towards it, and I think it is a transition. It will take its own shape, and it will find its own way over a period of time. I would say the lowest hanging fruits today, if we talk about green hydrogen, green ammonia, is the fertilizer sector, not only in India but globally, where the existing demand is so much that you will be able to consume as much as you can produce today at a competitive prices. As Mohit said, Saudi, and after Saudi probably India is one region, and especially in India we have one very large advantage which the other regions where we have similar or even better solar resource or wind resources is our large national grid. We have a 200 gigawatt of grid, and wherein we can have the benefit of utilizing banking of power for production of green ammonia, green hydrogen, and by virtue of that we can produce green ammonia or green hydrogen 24 hours. Whereas in countries like Egypt or Morocco or Saudi or probably Oman, where the grid sizes are much smaller, banking is not possible and feasible, and therefore the plant utilization factor in those countries would only be limited to the extent the green power or renewable power is available, which can be anywhere between 8 to 12 hours a day. And therefore there is an advantage which we can get in India in terms of reducing the capex, in terms of the capacities, and likewise we can become the export hub for green ammonia or green hydrogen. And when I say green hydrogen, essentially it is green ammonia or methanol, which are the derivatives which are transportable. And I believe there is a huge opportunity for India to become the export hub for the world.
Thanks, Sandeep. So Sandeep mentioned a lot of benefits that India carries in terms of renewable, availability of grid. We have already an ecosystem of hydrogen in the gray form. But one of the questions that was raised in the previous session also was around the safety of handling the molecule when we are dealing with hydrogen. So I know L&T has been doing a lot of projects and been handling hydrogen since ages. So Bimal, what's your take on with green hydrogen utilization and use cases? Would the safety be a concern, or we continue to look into regulations and standards to come before we, jump into the green hydrogen background?
Yeah, Kapil, I think, this is one notion coming because we are calling it green hydrogen. Interestingly, hydrogen is the only colorless gas which is having so many names, and like Dr. Saraswat said, now this golden or yellow color is also coming to picture. But if you look into the hydrogen has not changed. It's only the method of production has changed. So India or any other country per se is handling hydrogen since decades. So it's nothing new. The safety standards will remain same, what we are doing in the past also. The challenge, I think the question which we are having now is how you're going to define the green hydrogen. The definition per se is being discussed, for which we need to have standards. And yes, there are some additional processes are getting involved, which we need to see. But per se, we already have, OSD standards and, couple of other things happening. So people are already following that. I don't see it should be a major issue. The only thing which we need to be careful, if we are going to the new sectors. Why I'm saying new sectors, if you look into the existing sectors, let's say refineries or fertilizer units, they already have the ecosystem to handle hydrogen and ammonia, and they understand the challenges. But like many of the renewable players are coming into this, the renewable energy per se, the solar or wind don't have this kind of risk or issues which need to be taken care, like in case of hydrogen. So I think from that perspective, we need to be cautious. Hydrogen is not going to be another renewable power stuff which can be handled in similar way, in much simpler way. Renewable is much simpler form of the power, especially the solar. It's much more safe and simple. The technology of solar panels and inverters typically take care of production, unlike even thermal, gas, or nuclear, right? So I think we need to be more focused how the new use case industries are taking care and enforcing all these standards. That is one. Second, if we are going to scale up, the storage and transportation infrastructure is going to be another major challenge. Right now, people are not transporting hydrogen. So hydrogen has been typically produced next to the user or consumer, and it has been used. Now, with the new green norms coming up, people are planning to produce, and they plan to ship it to another locations, like Dr. Saraswat was also mentioning this hydrogen carriers, and there can be various carriers. So we definitely need to be more focused on the safety and other standard which will take care of how to store and transport hydrogen and its derivatives, the way we look into the industry. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, great. So we get an answer that safety is definitely paramount, and we have been working in the ecosystem of hydrogen. So we, in the overall discussion, have looked into a lot of elements of India definitely can be an hub for green hydrogen. We have looked into policy initiatives are coming. While that comes in from a distribution of gas and hydrogen, there are elements that will make it competitive. Already projects are under execution, contracts have been formed. But from an India standpoint of view, still one of the question remains is this is a very high capital intensive business. And access to capital would be a kind of a challenge to make it further competitive. Dr. Saraswat said that we have to have a cost of capital at 6%. So Anurag, what's your take in terms of access to capital, or is there enough capital going to be available to move towards this green hydrogen journey that we are looking for?
I hope so, because if you can show a sustainable, commercial business out of the new energy, the capital should be available. Yes, indeed, I mean, this is all capital game, right? I mean, there is no operational asset list, raw material investments. I mean, the sun is free, the wind is free, luckily. And then, water is not so much of part of the hydrogen cost. It's all capital game. So how do you manage to get this, capital cost low, which could be challenging for a country like us, where the cost of capital is high. But then also I would think, at some point there would be a realization that this is an asset building, right? This is an infrastructure building. And the cost should be, the cost of capital should be treated that same way, like what we treat the infrastructure development, right? I mean, so government has to, or the agencies have to give that sort of a cushion and confidence to the investors, and hopefully that would bring down the cost on the capital front. Because on the hydrogen front, it's interesting. I just want people who are not from the hydrogen industry, at least in the green side, it takes about, let's say, 50 units of electricity to produce 1 kg of hydrogen, right? So if your electricity is at 10, then your, the electricity cost in that hydrogen alone is 500 rupees, right, per kg. Now, if that comes down to 1, that's like 50, right? So how do you come from that, high cost of electricity in the renewable, which we know as in India, we have done, something like 2.4, 2.5 rupees. But again, you have to still go lower than that, because you're talking about 100, 150 rupees kg of the production alone. Remember what Dr. Saraswat was talking about. There is a supply chain cost, there is a usage cost. By the time you, utilize that unit of energy, and you want to, compare it with any existing technology, you have to do a substantial reduction. So it's the, it's the business model. There's a lot the industry has to do on the business innovation also. How do we fund this? How do we cost it? You have to also look at how much you can avoid the supply chain. Can you produce the hydrogen where it is being consumed, right? So there are various aspects to it, and I like to, when I speak to my team and others, also we have to think always that word hydrogen economy, right? When we say economy, it's like a marketplace. Where are you producing, where you're consuming, all those nitty-gritties of running an economy would come into play when we are thinking of the hydrogen economy, right? So there's no single answer to this, the question what you have, but capital is going to be very critical. Obviously, the renewable resources is going to be critical. One thing I just want others to also consider, when we talk about renewable resources, the profile, right? We think that the CUF is all what matters, the capacity utilization factor, right? I mean, that's how the LCOE comes in. But what also matters is how consistent that profile is. What are your peaks and valleys, right? It's very, very critical, because ultimately your whole design of the plant will depend on what is the intensity of your peaks and valleys of that renewable electricity. So there is a lot, there is a whole optimization. It's a new world, completely new world. And as you can see, industry is already sort of getting ready for it, how to tackle that issue by bringing in, multiple aspects, the digital, AI, machine learning, all those aspects are going in to squeeze each and every efficiency, whether it is a capital efficiency or operational efficiency, so that we can, reach to the price point, which will be competitive with the current realities of the fossil world. So I'll stop there. And Kapil, I have to catch a flight, if you permit.
Sure.
I have to leave now.
Thanks, Anurag. Thanks for your inputs. I think we are in the fag end of the overall session, but we got a really good perspective about, India can definitely achieve its, goal of becoming a green hydrogen hub. We have a target of achieving 5 MMTPA with almost 116 gigawatt of electrolyzer capacity to be built, as Bimal mentioned. A lot of corporates are moving towards that journey. We have ACME talking about their execution and market accessibility in Oman, and which they want to replicate in the Indian context with the 3 states where they have the MOU signed, which Sandeep clearly mentioned. Mohit also have a tall targets to parallel their conventional fuel targets of 60 gigawatts back into the renewable 60 gigawatts to achieve a lot of their pilots. L&T is in the journey. They have been executing a lot of projects in the green hydrogen space, and they consider that hydrogen safety is paramount, but would be taken care given that it's already in existence in refineries, fertilizers. We just need to see the different use cases that are going to come up within the overall green hydrogen use cases of transportation, marine, power generation, chemical feedstock obviously has been in adoption since long. So in a nutshell, I can definitely say an important topic that Economist Time Energy Conclave has brought in the era of future for gas, and green hydrogen will definitely play an important role, and India would be an important geography to fulfill the needs and the ambition of our Honorable Prime Minister, which always has talked about nation first and looking at the world in overall context, where we will be able to achieve a zone where we will look in growth, looking at our energy security, at the same time fulfilling the need of being looking towards decarbonization of the overall India towards the journey towards 2070. With that note, I'll thank every panelist. I thank ET for providing this opportunity for us to speak about it. Thank you, everyone.